And so today we have a pretty special session. This has been part of a series coordinated by Portland Farmers Market and in conjunction with Cook First PDX. Cook First Portland is a group of home cooks, culinary educators, and advocates who believe in the power of home cooking. And you can find them on Instagram at Cook First PDX and at cookfirstpdx.org. And I'll drop that link in the comments and chat in just a little bit. And today we have a very special guest chef, Liz Crain. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Wing. It's great.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think we will just go ahead and get started with the presentations.
All right, I'm here to talk about how you can use your Oregon Trail Card to shop farmers markets this winter. That'd be PSU Farmers Market on Saturdays at the Portland State University campus, but many other winter market locations in the state. You could find all of them at doubleuporegon.org. And what happens at the farmers market is you're able to take your SNAP benefits from your card and the market will provide a SNAP match. The SNAP match comes in the form of Double Up Food Buck currency. So what you'd want to do is grab your card, find the information booth where the folks will be able to slide your card and remove benefits from your card. The benefits that come off of your card will come in the form of $1 tokens, and these you can think of as your benefits. Anything you could buy in the grocery store with SNAP, you can buy in the farmer's market with SNAP. So that'd be fruits and vegetables, but also a bottle of kombucha, a loaf of bread, a pastry to take home and eat. Those are the things that you can purchase with your SNAP benefits in the farmer's market. Additionally, what's going to happen at the information booth is up to $10, they will provide a SNAP match. And the SNAP match is a free extra amount of money, up to $10 per week, that comes in the form of Double Up Food Bucks. And Double Up Food Bucks, on the back side of them, you can see this list, and you can also read about it at doubleuporegon.org. These Double Up Food Bucks are for fresh fruits and vegetables, but that includes mushrooms and beans and herbs in the springtime, vegetable starts, and raw and unprocessed nuts. So Double Up Food Bucks is for more fresh fruits and vegetables. It helps support the farmers. It's a match, a free $10 for you to go with the money that you pull off of your Oregon Trail Card. And you could do that again at many farmers market locations year round. But if you wanted to look up the list, you go to doubleuporegon.org.
Hello, Fix It Fair people. I'm so happy and honored to get to be here with you today to celebrate cabbage. I love cabbage so much, and I am really excited to make one of my favorite ferments with you, which is super simple sauerkraut. If you haven't made it before, it really requires so little. You gotta have your cabbage, your salt, a sharp knife, and some sort of like big bowl to put everything in as you're making it. So for this recipe, we're going to do 1 quart of sauerkraut. Well, this is my helper, Reuben. You can't see him yet, but this is my white wolf, Reuben, who is always on kitchen detail, so he's cleaning the floors. Not now, he's gonna go take a nap. But yeah, we're gonna make a quart of this. So get whatever like wide mouth quart jar you have, or a couple smaller pints, or whatever glass vessel. You don't want to use plastic or metal in general, unless it's a food grade plastic. Can eke out stuff as it's fermenting. And then you want to have a roughly 2.5 pound medium head of cabbage, green, red, all different varieties. You can use whatever you want. Today I'm using green, and I actually already started doing a little bit of the slicing. So let's just hop right to it. Oh, before that though, I just want to say I'm Liz Crain. I'm an author, a food writer, a cookbook author. I'm also co-organizer and co-founder of the Portland Fermentation Festival. And my very favorite fermentation book is Wild Fermentation by Sandor Katz. So if you get into this and you really enjoy making this batch of sauerkraut with me or after you watch this and you want to learn how to do more ferments, I highly recommend that book. Multnomah County Library has loads of copies, and all our indies like Powell's and Broadway carry it too. Okay, so you want to take your 2.5 pound head of cabbage and you want to slice it right down the middle. So what I like to do is get it on, when it's whole, of course, get it on the flattest part of the root, and if you need to, slice off a little root to make it flat so that when you cut down. Biggest, heaviest, sharpest knife that you have, because cabbage is dense and kind of hard to slice. So I already did some of the other half. I sliced it already here. But then what you want to do is you just want to quarter it, and you want to get the core out of all of those quarters. So just, that sort of triangle cut right like that will get rid of that core, and you can discard it or compost it, whatever. It's not tasty, it's really dense. Get rid of that, and then you basically just want to slice it as thinly and in the type of pieces that you like sauerkraut. So I like kind of to do a 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch thickness and slice. So that's what I'm doing here. And you don't have to be precise about this. You can just kind of chop, slice, and dice. And then I like to kind of give it another little slice, make it into bite-sized pieces. And then you put all of this into your big bowl. I just want you to know that this recipe scales up or down super easily. So if you want to, I'll often make, this is for a quart. I'll often make a gallon batch. So I will quadruple it and make a gallon. Because I have from the deli, you can often ask them whatever deli, or at the supermarket, those big gallon jars. They're often just going to recycle them. So you can ask, do you have any olive or pickle or kraut jars, a gallon jar that I can have? They'll often give it to you. All right, so that's all sliced. So basically, this sauerkraut is going to take you anywhere fermenting on your countertop, anywhere from a few days to a few weeks. It just depends on how you like your sauerkraut and the temperature and the cabbage and all sorts of factors, but that's generally how long it'll take. So once you have it all sliced and in your large bowl, you want to put a scant to a heaping tablespoon of salt onto it. And I'm talking kosher salt right here. So if you're using sea salt or just a regular table salt, use a little bit less, so more like a scant tablespoon for sure. And then you just want to, let me get this out of the way. With your clean paws, you just want to squeeze the heck out of it. So you're just going to mash it, squeeze it, press down on it, and you're going to do this for 2 to 3 minutes because you want to, by doing this, you're breaking down the cabbage's cell walls, and you are allowing the salt to get in there to eke out the moisture, to eke out the water. And that's this is basically all of the work that you're going to do on this. Once you get this after 2 or 3 minutes and it gets really juicy, then we're going to push it into that jar. And then it's going to sit on the counter for, a few days to a few weeks, and you're going to taste it every day. Some things that I like to do with sauerkraut, and the fun thing about making it yourself is you get to witness that magical transformation, because in the beginning it's just salty cabbage. But then after a couple of days, it'll start to get bubbly. It'll start to get a little sour. It'll get more sour. It'll sometimes it'll overflow a little bit in the jar. So always keep the jar on a plate or in a bowl in your kitchen. It's really a very fun process. But once it's done and it's the way that you like it, it tastes just right. It's crunchy the way you like it. It's the right amount of sourness. Then you put it in the fridge and you can enjoy it. I mean, you can enjoy it for months. I recommend 1 to 2 months. After that, it kind of, I don't know, it gets less vibrant and isn't quite as yummy. I mean, it's certainly still good for you and it keeps, but then like I like to have kraut in Reuben sandwiches. That's my dog's name. I like to have sauerkraut in rice bowls, quesadillas, grilled cheeses, salads. I mean, it's good in so much. So that's pretty good. Like, you want to get it to the point where, like, see if you can see this. When you squeeze it, it like moisture comes out of it, like drips out. And that's where we're at. So I'm going to give my paws a quick rinse. And then we're going to get it into our jar. So like if you have something like a blunt, heavy pestle, some kind of tool that you can use to kind of smash it down into your jar, then I recommend doing that. Otherwise you can just use your hands. I like to fill in the bowl because it's sort of like a little bit of a messy process. So just kind of get it full and then smash it down with your hands, or I'm going to use this. And like, you can't be too rough with it. Like, you really want to break it down so that it gets really nice and juicy. And you want to, I mean, it's kind of surprising like that this all actually ends up fitting in there. And if you have like a little extra cabbage that doesn't fit in, I mean, you can always like start another, like have a smaller jar that you ferment as well in addition to the quart. But if you have a little extra, I also highly recommend just making like a quick slaw. So I'll often just add like whatever, like a little soy sauce or a little citrus or a little vinegar or mayo or, you know, some herbs, whatever like seasonings and flavorings. Usually like I like a little acid, like a little citrus or vinegar and a little oil. Then that's really yummy too, to have just like a quick salad. So we're getting good. You want to leave like at least an inch headspace at the top, because as this ferments over the next days to weeks, it's going to get bubbly and the cabbage is going to kind of push up a little bit. So you want a little room at the top. And every day when you check on it, you want to, if there's any kind of like surface molds or yeast, which will happen, it's very natural, just kind of skim those off and discard them. Or like you can use a paper towel to kind of pull them up, or a towel. And then just kind of like rinse the inside of the vessel just with water. Because it's like those yeast or molds like really do, if you don't clean them off, then they can take over. But I've never had a bad batch of sauerkraut. It's always, always, always turns out, and it's always so delicious. And I've made hundreds of batches. The first batch that I made was almost 20 years ago now. So we are good to go on that. And I'm just going to give the outside a little rinse because I've got some cabbage all over it. And now we just need to weight it down. So I think the easiest thing to do is I did a pre-batch so I could have this ready. So this is one that I just started a moment ago, or 20 minutes ago. It's just like get a little sandwich bag that has like a ziplocky top, fill it with maybe like a half cup of water, and then you can just sort of set that in on top of the cabbage, so that what you're doing with this setup is you're allowing the ferment to bubble and off gas, but you're inhibiting any air from getting to the cabbage itself. So that's with like all ferments. You want to keep them below the brine of this type of ferment. And you could also use, like, if you have, like, I have these glass fermentation weights that just kind of sit in there and do that job as well. I saw Heather in one of the other fun Fix-It Fair demos. She used like a little shot glass. That wouldn't quite be wide enough, but like if you have a little like ramekin or something that can fit in there, you can use that too. And then basically you're just gonna let this hang out on your countertop every day or two. Pull up the bag, pull off the weight, give it a taste. How's it taste? Is it getting, is it like getting softer? Is it getting silkier? Is it getting more flavor? And it's usually gonna take, like for me, I say generally, dependent on the season, etc. It's gonna take from like a week to 2 weeks is like sort of the sweet spot for how I like it. And then once it gets to that spot, you just take the weight off, put a lid on it, enjoy a few, spoonfuls before you do, and then stick it in the fridge. And like I said, it keeps for months and months and months, but I think like in the first month or two is the best time. And then just like really quickly, other things. Oh, and here's like a finish. This is my last pint that I have. And in this, I added some like red chili flakes, a little bit of kale, and I'm gonna do that too. Like I'm gonna combine these and like add some stuff to them and like put them in a larger jar for myself, for my ferment. But I had like an old kind of wilty carrot that I'm sort of like bringing back to life in this glass of water. So I'm gonna grate some carrot. I've got some kale from the garden, so I'm gonna roll that up and like thinly slice it, put that in. Got a couple Brussels, a little bit of red chili flake and celery salt, or celery seeds. So like you can add more things, like just, I would say like a half cup or less of like additional veggies and or spices and herbs. And then like you might want to adjust the salt a little bit. And you also can do that like as the ferment goes, it's better to start with a little bit less salt, and you can add it as you go to like your taste. You can either just sprinkle it right in and it's just like so juicy that it'll eventually dissolve and like incorporate throughout the kraut, or you can just like mix salt with a little bit of water if you want to dissolve it first and add it, but just to like get it to the right salty level, especially if like you add other ingredients. But if you get super into this and then you want to do like other types of cabbage ferments, kimchi is one of my very, very favorites. It's a Korean, if you don't know, Napa cabbage ferment. So it's like very spicy and funky and yummy. But sauerkraut is so good for you. And now that you have this recipe, like it's something when you get it at the store and it's on shelves, and that's been pasteurized. So it's been like slowly cooked at a low temperature. And that kind of like kills off some of the nutrition and the microbes. And with yours, with this batch, you're going to have just like full of life, great for you, nutritious, delicious, magical kraut that you made yourself. And it's great for gut health, it's great for mental health, and it's most importantly, it's just super duper delicious. So thank you so much for attending this Fix-It Fair with me. It's been so fun for me to go to all of these winter veg Fix-It fairs, and I'm sure that we've been in attendance at a lot of them together, and I've been learning a lot. So I hope you learned a thing or two here, and happy kraut making, and I will see you soon. I'll see you at the next Fix-It Fair.
Liz, that was so good. Thank you so much for sharing your magical kraut secrets.
Oh, it was so fun to do. And I have the kraut here if you want me to show my final result.
I really want to taste a sample, but we can't do that. So yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah. So like I ended up, like I said on there's Ruben back there. He's like, well, are you going to do some kraut? Do I get some? But I ended up.
Reuben sandwich.
Yeah, Reuben sandwich. Combining all of that cabbage, and then I added like the kale and the carrots and some Brussels, and it ended up taking like 5 or 6 days. Let's see if you can. And it's so crunchy, tart, flavorful, and delicious. It's like exactly how I like it. So I'm always kind of like trying to figure out that sweet spot where it's still nice and crispy, but it's also very pungent and sour, because as it ferments, like it'll soften a bit. Yeah. Where'd you go?
Oh, I spotlit you so that everyone was looking at your gorgeous krauts, and not maybe accidentally my face.
Yeah.
That is so great. We have a couple questions. Let me read them off so that they stay on the recording and folks watching on Facebook can hear them.
Great.
So the first one is, what's a good place to buy cabbage? The cabbages I find at Freddy's or Asian markets are pretty dry. They don't yield a lot of liquid, so the tops of my ferments aren't submerged. Cabbages at my farmers markets are okay in season, but they're not cheap.
Okay, I hear you. So I love like my local cherry sprout or like small neighborhood grocers that are working farm direct. That's a good spot. But yeah, farmers market is great. We are like, it is actually at the end of the season because like you plant cabbage in the spring, you harvest it in the fall. And so like right now is when you're planting it. But what I'll often do in that situation, like if it is quite dry, is I will like add other veggies to it that are juicier. So like maybe some celery, maybe some carrot, maybe some other leafy greens. You can also just make like a little bit of brine, as long as like our water here, like I'm assuming most of the people here are in Portland and our water is great. So just like a little bit of water, a little bit of salt, and you can kind of in the beginning to get, enough liquid in there to submerge it, but also just like keep kind of using whatever tool, like your hands or that like pestle that I used, and like every day you can kind of push it a little bit more and kind of pound it a little bit more, and it'll continue, like as it ferments, it'll exude more liquid. But yeah, neighborhood grocers, and I mean, this cabbage was great. It was really juicy, even though, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
We have a comment on Facebook that especially loved the revival of the carrot, and I love that too.
Yeah.
I haven't done that before.
I do that a lot of times with all different veggies. So that's a restaurant trick that I learned a long time ago. So, like if you forgot to put something in the crisper in your fridge and you've got like, a turnip that's kind of saggy, or any kind of like root vegetables for sure, and other vegetables as well, you can often like just like, if you have a bunch, like fill up your sink with water and just let them all hang out in it. And they'll just like the cabbage is giving off moisture with the salt, it's going to pull it in just in, a cold water bath. But yeah, it's a quick revival. Like I feel like with that carrot, I mean, it was a pathetic carrot. It was like in the back of the fridge, and it was like, I could bend it almost like that. And it's like a big carrot. And I feel like in maybe 2 hours, it was like, rigid. It was like, I'm ready. I'm my full carrot self again. So yeah, it's a good trick.
Nice, brought back to full potential. I like it.
Totally.
So we have a few more questions. A note of thanks, and then where's the best place to get plastic lids for the jars?
Plastic lids for the jars. I mean, like I've always just gotten them at like Freddy's or New Seasons or any. It seems like most markets in Portland these days are all going to have like a canning section where you can get those. I'm assuming they're meaning like, so I have all my ferments over here, but like these kind of like plastic reusable. Yeah. So like you can get the wide mouth and the, what do you call the regular mouth plastic lids at, any grocery store. That's where I always get them. But then, like I said, like this, like I have so many of these gallon jars that I've gotten over the year. I've never bought one. I just always, ask at whatever grocer or deli that I'm at, if they have any extras that they're, getting rid of and recycling, and they'll almost always give them to you, which is nice.
Nice.
If you're doing, I mean, that's like a larger amount, but yeah.
So another question we have is, will this work without cabbage, say using beets, turnips, or carrots?
Yeah, I think that in that situation, so if you're doing a ferment with those guys, you would want to, instead of just thinly slicing like we did here, you'd want to grate, because they are much denser, and you want to like open up those fibers, and that will allow you to get that juiciness from them. Like if you're just thinly slicing them, then it'd just be like a bunch of dry veggies in a jar. You wouldn't get, but you can also like with all of these, so like I brought out all my ferments. I have like my sour pickles, what else is like that? My dilly beans. So these are ferments that you can do just with like a brine. So you don't have to, so I'm trying to say, if you had those veggies and you found that when you grated them, you didn't get enough moisture, you could always just make a brine and ferment them in that way. But those would all be really yummy together.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Cook First Portland, our representative from Cook First, notes on Facebook that hardware stores also carry canning supplies.
Oh yeah,
Question
totally.
previously.
Yeah, and often they'll have a bigger section too. Yeah, at a hardware store, because they have the shelf space for, like, you know, the big canning pots and all of that stuff too.
So we have a question: which type of salt is the best to use? How much does it matter?
You know, so everyone has a different answer for this, but like, honestly, I don't think it matters all that much, but I do think that the weight of your salt matters. So like, I used a heaping tablespoon of kosher salt, and kosher salt has larger flakes. So if you are wanting to translate that to, like, you know, table salt, like a Morton's table salt, or a sea salt, which they're heavier and they're smaller pieces, the volume makes it heavier, then you'd want to use a little bit less. But I think when you're doing, like, the main thing is with iodized salt, it'll often, like table salt, it'll often have anti-caking agents. So that's like keeping the salt as it sits on the shelf from, like, sticking together and caking. That's something that, like, you don't love to have that in your ferments, because it can make them kind of cloudy, and it's just unnecessary. But I mean, I have made ferments with every single kind of salt, you know, and they always turn out great. So I don't think you have to worry too much about it. Just use what you have. But my go-to is kosher, just because I always have big boxes of it around, and I like it.
Liz, can you tell us how much you use again?
So for the quart of kraut, I used a 2.5 pound, just medium head of cabbage. Just get like a small to medium head of cabbage. And then I used a heaping tablespoon of kosher salt. Or if you're using, you know, table salt or a sea salt, use a couple teaspoons. And once you core that cabbage, that's going to end up about a quart. You might have a little bit extra, you might have a little less, but that'll roughly do it. And I really do, like, almost every time that I have extra cabbage from kraut, like not quite enough for, it's more than my jar, but not quite enough for a second jar, I'll just make like a quick slaw with it. That's so yummy, because you can just put whatever sounds good to you, like a little mustard and mayo, a little like salad dressing, a little vinaigrette, a little citrus, and it's really good.
That sounds really good.
Oh, it's done now.
I love it.
Yeah.
Liz, this has been so great. It's so wonderful to have you lead a workshop here. I know you've been in attendance of a few of the other workshops, and yeah, it's just a delight and an honor to have you present here. We have another question. Oh, sorry, Liz, what was that?
Oh, I would just wanted to say thank you so much, Wing, and thank you to City of Portland. Thank you to Cook First. Thank you to Portland Farmers Market. It's super fun to do this. I love it.
I'm so glad. So glad. I think it's really fun too.
Yeah.
So we have a very important question. This is a great one. Yeah. Will there be a fermentation festival this year? And I'll add, if not, then what the plan is for the future.
You know, I think we definitely know we're going to have a 2022 festival. I'll say that. I think that our Stink Fest, that's our nickname for our Portland Fermentation Festival, which we skipped this year because we didn't feel like it's a virtual kind of event. But our Stink Fest is all about getting all sorts of people together, hundreds of people together to sample foods, to share things, to get really up close and personal with one another. I mean, it's kind of like elbow to elbow. So things would really have to shift pretty quickly and change dramatically for that to be able to happen. But we're really looking forward to when we can do it again, because it's such a great community, and it's such a, like, once you pay to get in, which is just to cover our costs, we're not a profitable festival, then you don't buy anything. It's a buy nothing event. So it's all about talking to one another and learning from the makers how to make things like, you know, miso and natto and wines and sour pickles. And so I don't know, but it's looking unlikely. Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, it's sad, but inspiring and good to know that you'll be back. The festival will be back.
Yeah, we love it's at Eco Trust every year, and it's just such a, like, kids 12 and under get in for free, and we always have a lot of like hands-on demos and ways in which we can just engage everyone into this just fun, culturally rich creative food expression. It's so fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
If anybody has any additional questions, you can reach out directly to Fix It Fair, and I'll go ahead and drop the email and more links in the comments here in just a sec.
Can I wait for a second? Can I just show off a couple things?
Oh my gosh, like, yes, please do.
Because I know you have the next thing. But just like if you get super into, if you like making this kraut and then you want to make other things, again, Sandor Katz's book, Wild Fermentation. This is the first edition. The pink one is a newer, is great. That's a good resource. But you can make things like your own. This is my miso. This is my 2-year-old miso. And this is my 11-year-old miso. You can make things like dandelion wine. So I make this with my friend and her daughter every year. She's 14 now. We've been making it since she was, I don't know, 3 or 4. But this is the time of the year, like when the dandelions come out. Or things like your own soy sauce if you get really advanced. Anyhow, I pulled all these out. So I was like, I better show them because it's fun. All the different paths you can take and all of the different learning you can do. But sauerkraut is one of my go-tos. It's so yummy, and yeah, cabbage is so delicious. I just like it. Yeah, sandwiches, bowls, all kinds of fun things.
It's very cool. Yeah, thank you for highlighting wild fermentation too.
Oh yeah,
it's a very, very awesome book, kind of revolutionary in its way. So it's really appreciated.
I've always said, yeah, since 2003 when I got it, when it came out, it's the book that's had the biggest impact on my life of all books. And I'm a real bookworm, so that says a lot. It's my favorite and most important book. It's changed my life. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Well, thank you again, Liz. This has been great. And yeah, thank you. I don't know what else to say. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it was a cabbage party.